Warning, what you are about to watch is going to upset many fanboys, and many people are going to be flaming and flagging this video because they can't agree with what I have to say. Well, guess what? Too fucking bad. I'm going to go and say it anyway because guess what? Freedom of speech, motherfucker. Anyway, the Nintendo Wii sucks. I think it's one of the most gimmicky systems of all time. It's lousy. There are no games of any substance on it besides Twilight Princess and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. That's the only games that I own that are any good. Oh, and give or take a few other titles that are pretty decent on it. Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2, which I don't own because I stopped buying games for the Wii because I won't support it. I have an Xbox 360. That's good enough for me. But back in 2008, I purchased this piece of shit Wii, and I'm so sorry I did because there's no games for it. There's no reason to play it. And first of all, let me say something to you. Pathetic that it has the same exact graphics as the GameCube. Unacceptable. How can you call a system next gen? So half-assed. That's so and don't even say, oh, they were trying to concentrate on the controls, because that is a whole entire thing. There's a whole entire different thing. Controls, graphics. I've heard people try to say that. They try to say, oh, well, the graphics are not that good because it's all about the gameplay. Well, the gameplay also sucks. Let me tell you something about the motion sensor controls. That sensor bar, it's a piece of fucking shit. It barely works half the time. You want to know something? Yeah, you know what? It does work, but like at a 60% rate, it's not that accurate. I think it sucks. It's just horrible. It's because it's the first of its kind. I mean, the only other thing we had before in the video game world was the iToy, and before that you had those shitty ray gun games. You had the light gun for the NES, and that's about fucking it when it comes to motion sensor shit. And you know how those things turned out? They sucked. And the iToy was half decent, but come on, in the end, it's nothing that you're gonna play for hours on end. So I have to say, I'm pretty fucking displeased with the turnout of the Wii. It's been out for an official 4 years now. It came out in 2006, and I have to say, it's really pathetic that this system, has, you can still make good games, even though you have some lousy ass graphics by today's standards. But you can still make good games, but they refuse to do so because they're still talking about the moniker. They're still catering to that same tagline that they're concentrating on gameplay. Nintendo always fucking says this about the goddamn. I was banging the table, so now I gotta readjust my camera. Excuse me, but I have to say, they always use this fucking excuse about putting gameplay above everything else. You know about this shit? Do you know about this shit? Well, you know what? I'm really sick of it. It started with the N64. The N64 is one of the greatest systems of all time, but it lacked a lot of games for it. There was a time when the library was so pathetic. I remember when I got this system. I was back in '97. I was saying, "Where's the fucking games?" I remember I just had GoldenEye for it for about a year, and the only other game was Super Mario 64, and and that was about it. That was really about it for that system. There was really nothing else to play for until about another year or so, when they started releasing Zelda and everything like that. But before that, it sucked. It wasn't anything to write home about at all. I mean, I was so disappointed. And what did they keep saying about it? They said, oh, it's because, Nintendo's games are all about gameplay. Not so much about putting out more games than the other guy. Meanwhile, N64, by the time it was out about a year, it came out in 1996, and to 97 when I got the system. N64 had about I don't know, about 40 games, and Sony PlayStation had about 100. And I was like, what the fuck? What's going on there? I mean, like, Nintendo better start catching up on one. You know, with the SNES and the Genesis, when they were going at that, boom, 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 they kept sending out games like wildfire. But when it came time for Nintendo to take on Sony, they didn't stand a chance. And the thing was, because they failed to have third-party support, everybody abandoned Nintendo at that time. Now, I'm not even sure how Nintendo managed to survive, because Sony kicked Nintendo's ass tenfold in that competition. I mean, when it came time for that next gen war to take place, I mean, they were losing bad. And what was the reason? It's because Nintendo went ahead and put the games on cartridges. Now, why would you fucking do that when everybody else was putting games on discs? Now, the thing was, Sony was a little bit inexperienced with this, and they knew that Nintendo was coming up with a 64-bit system, but they decided to settle on 32 bits, which made it look like the Sega Saturn, the system that was released in 1994 prior to the Sony PlayStation. There's always a system that gets a head start on the competition. It happens every single year. It's pretty much expected at this point. But it really hurt Nintendo bad. So, when it came time for the next gen war, who got the jump start? Sony once again. The PS2 came out. That's if you don't count the Dreamcast, because that was such a dark horse anyway. Everybody knew it was going to kind of fail in the end. So, it was between Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox. So, everybody was putting the games on DVDs. Everything was on a DVD-ROM. Everything was nice and peachy. What do you think Nintendo does? They come out with these tiny little fucking discs for the GameCube. And again, it's like, what the fuck, man? I mean, you have this whole competition, and Nintendo's got to try to be different. They always got to try to be different, but they didn't learn from their mistake. When they tried to be so different in the competition, they failed. And what happened? They failed again. They fucking failed because they ended up in third place. The only ones they managed to beat was the Dreamcast, which went totally defunct in a year of its lifespan. So that's really no honor at all. So you really have to look at it that Nintendo ended up in third place. They lost the war like they did last gen as well. So go figure. Because Nintendo had to put it on these little mini discs. That was their choice. Why they did that, I have no fucking idea. Because they wanted to make the GameCube so little fucking tiny. Well, you know what? They still could have made it tiny, when they still could have put DVDs as the format that it plays the games from. But they decided not to. So what happened? Third-party support, almost non-existent. It was almost like, why did Nintendo even fucking bother anymore? But they did bother. So what happened? Again, this time, Microsoft had the jump start on the other two companies out there, Sony and Nintendo. This time, Nintendo decided to do the same thing again. Put the games on little fucking tiny. Just what the fuck is Nintendo's problem? And then we realized that the Wii and GameCube were almost equivalent. What the Wii was going to be was a system compatible with the GameCube games. And it was the only other difference, the graphics were going to remain the same. Yeah, that's right. A system that came out in 2001 was going to have the same graphical capabilities as a system that was going to come out 5 years later in 2006. Now, can you really fucking wrap your head around that? I mean, how insane does that sound? You had 5 years to improve. 360 was a major difference over the original Xbox. PS3, an amazing difference over the PS2. I mean, that was the most dramatic. PS3 over the PS2, no comparison at all. And, the 360 also was a giant leap. But Nintendo decided to remain the same because they are fucking stubborn as shit, even when there's money involved. But somehow Nintendo won out this time. Nintendo is going to win this war. Why? Because they said they were going to they were going to cater to the casual gamer. I mean, everybody who's stuck near Nintendo always realized that they were always going to release what they call hardcore games, which are games that have a lot of depth to them. You know, that can be played for hours on end. Those are the Marios, those are the Zeldas, those are the Banjo-Kazooies, those are the epic games. You know, the really long games with the really good graphics and you know, the games that are going to have the really high scores, like almost by default, because, you know, you just expect the games to be good at that point because they're long-running series. But you know what? Nintendo actually won for some reason, and that's just fucking stupid that they catered to these people. What they should have done is fucking drop this shit already about the mini discs. Put it on a fucking DVD or a Blu-ray like a human being, like a real programmer would, like a real game designer. Put it on a fucking DVD at least. You know, at least put it on the most minuscule technology available that's still up to date. But they decided not to. You know, and it doesn't make any sense to me. So, you know, right now, if you don't include Wii Sports, I have 6 games for the Nintendo Wii, and it's probably not going to progress beyond that. Because I don't give a shit about the Wii. I mean, the Wii channel where you can buy the games, the old games, is kind of dandy. And I went and I bought a couple of the Homestar Runner games that were available for it, because that was something different. Because nobody else was offering that. But, you know what? There's nothing else. There's nothing else to save the Wii. There's nothing else on the horizon but the new Zelda game. That's the only thing I'm going to buy for the Wii, is the new Zelda game coming out. You know, and that's about it. That's pretty fucking sad. When you only got one game on your mind. So, the Wii is just a piece of trash. And anybody who doesn't like what I have to say about it, well, I really don't give a shit. Because it's almost written in stone. Fucking Wii, man. Terrible.